Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Eddie Marcus here again. I want you to know that I'm on a special mission. You have, many of you, accepted pastors and preachers and elders and bishops and so on and so forth because they came to you and told you that they had been called into service by God. Very seldom would you find one to say that this is a profession that they would like to engage themselves in, and so they are going to do it. They're going to step off into it because it's something that they want to do. And you have accepted them as being legitimate through the fact that you go and you follow the rules and regulations as they serve as the representatives thereof. You play parts in the system of that church and pay your tithes and offerings, and you do what you do. Now, I mention this stuff to you because I want you to know that all my life I felt that something was wrong. Something was wrong when it came to the way people were treated. Being raised in the South in Mississippi and having to go through those things that we went through back in the 50s, it exposed and revealed to the children. The children are the ones who are paying attention. They are the ones that's learning. Uh, Adults are just reacting, but kids are watching. And I used to see things that really bothered me. Things that happened within the family, things that happen within the community, and whatever you're engaged in, somewhere at some time, there's something that happens that you question. The thing that got me the most, though, was the church. I was raised by very old people, and they made sure that we got a good dose of the church. People would read the scripture, talk about the scriptures, and confessions would take place. But I never, ever got a chance to actually witness people who go to church who claim to have been born again and led of the Spirit of God. I never, ever saw them really doing what I considered as the stuff that God was to be identified by. You talk about Jesus and the magnificent things Jesus did, understanding God like that, and those that followed him, and what it led to and what it was willing to be. And I didn't see any of that in the community. I just saw going to church as a routine, like an organization, and going through everything else in life. And so I made my mind up that I wanted to do one thing, and that was to get out of school and get out of Mississippi. So I got out of Mississippi, and I was working, doing pretty good. But in that gig, I got a chance to see a lot of pain and suffering that took me back to my youth, that said, this isn't right. Something needs to be done. I don't know what to do. Lord, if there's something to do, show me. Just begging. And so it ended up, my commitment being so that I ended up quitting my job. It's a pretty good job. And I started washing windows at storefronts. And I did this because it didn't take too much concentration to wash windows. And at the time, I could be contemplating, I could be meditating, I could be dealing with the spirit, searching out of hunger for how to deal with the pain and suffering that existed amongst my human brothers and sisters. I wanted it to get away. And by, making this choice caused additional problems or different problems as well in my life. So I accepted the additional problems because this was very important to me. I ended up going into the military, and during this time, Ronald Reagan was president. And it appeared as if all things were taking place for a reason. I didn't know, except there was something that I was searching for, and these were the paths that I had to walk, and I was walking them. And doing that tour, Ronald Reagan was doing a lot of things that the one percenters were very proud of, but people who were of the other group, they weren't so proud. It was adding to the suffering, the pain that people endured. So it caused me to be really ashamed wearing a uniform with my search, with my heart. I don't know where I'm going except what I want to see and what I want to experience. And so I decided to stop taking orders because of the kind of conduct Ronald Reagan was yielding to those who were hurting. Well, I got out of the military, and jumping ahead a few years, I found myself up in Minnesota someplace, and my hunger took me to start being on radio, talking on. I had a program called Love Ministry, Life of Victory Eternal. Love Ministry, Life of Victory Eternal. Boy, that was nice. And I would just speak. I would share with people life of victory, and it was love. That's all I would talk about. That's what my ministry was. I chose that as a ministry. Now, here I just said, I chose this as a ministry based upon what I spoke to you about earlier. What took me to this point that I would choose this? In my earlier life, I had seen miracles. Miracles are things that others just can't do. And one thing about them, very seldom would anybody believe it. So a miracle is for the one that receives it. So I had received them, so there was, to me, no question about God. The problem is the society, how to fix it, what's going on with it. So back to, I've chosen this. Then after we got a few years in that, I changed the program to the Moment of Truth. Turn here this time, you're going to get the moment of truth. Now, what was I doing? I wasn't preaching scripture. I'm telling you what is required, how to get the answers, what would produce the answers. And God was a part of that. And there would be oftentimes I would share scriptures that even suggested directly that. But for the most part, I was using the spirit of life that we see every day. We don't have to talk around about what happened out there. The answer is right here. It was the answer then, it's going to be the answer tomorrow, and it is the answer today. Me knowing that, I don't have to go back in there talking about something that's foreign to you, talking about something that you don't really understand. But you understand your life. If you listen, if you want to listen, you can understand, no problem. So I went to this program called A Moment of Truth. And I did that for a few years. And I changed when cable came around and you got a chance to utilize cable access. I did a program called Paradise on Earth Unlimited. Paradise on Earth Unlimited. Ooh, boy, Paradise on Earth Unlimited. I was so excited about it. And I got a chance to spend years on it, sharing with the people, whoever would listen, whoever could listen. And they got to the point that I had been given, even before these radio shows, that really qualified me to do the things that I was doing. Because having come to Minnesota, spent some time here, I had to travel over the country. And my reason for traveling over the country was to talk to people, sharing the basic concept, general information relative to what I've just mentioned to you, to see if we can have a conversation, dialogue, talk about it, see where people were, where their heads were at, where their hearts were at, where their minds and spirits were at. And I traveled. And as I wrapped up of 2 tours of doing this, I wrote a book called From a Walk Through Life, From Hell to Paradise. Now, I wrote that book, and somebody might say, well, why hadn't you? I wrote it and made me a couple of copies of it, stored them away. People say, why don't you get them published? And, but my reason for not publishing them or not having any interest in publishing them is because publishing usually, aside from getting a message out, is about making money. And people are not hooking themselves up to anything that's not about making money. And I didn't get this information. I didn't buy it. This information was given to me free, and I want to make this information available to the people free. And so I have not produced it for the masses. But then it is prepared that when the time is appropriate and they can get that without paying, produce without paying, then it'll happen. Anyway, so I'm here constantly. I've learned, and this is why I'm telling you this message. Then I decide that, well, with the information that I've got, let me share this with the world. Let me find a platform that I can use to get this message out that might get people to listen. So I believe it was in '88 I ran for president of the United States. And I used what I've just been talking to you about. This is what I was giving the people, offering to the people. And, well, obviously, I was ignored. I was totally ignored. I had to run, in fact, as a write-in. The Democrats weren't interested in that message. Or some people might say, it might have been you. Well, I wasn't selling me. I was selling the message. And then I ran again, and same results. But because I'm committed, and you are the purpose of my existence in getting this for as an answer to what you've been praying for. And so I ran for governor. Could maybe, and people would constantly say, well, why don't you run for city council? My message too big for a city councilman. You know, I don't have time to sit and be arguing with people who are going to say, and I've been there too. But anyway, I decided to run for governor, and I was treated the same way. Then I ran for a United States senator, treated the same way. Then I ran for mayor, finally, treated the same way. Well, I got a little bit more respect in the mayoral campaign, but treated the same way. So what was happening? This is what was happening, ladies and gentlemen. The world as I see it is on a roll. It's on a deceptive roll. And why do I say it's on a deceptive roll? It's because the way I understand life to be, it's supposed to be as perfect as a tree, a seed planted that comes up and make one of the most beautiful trees. Or a flower seed that's planted comes up and make life is supposed to be just like that. You do this, you do that, and naturally all of these things come together and this is what you have. But that's not happening. And so what I gather from what I've experienced in life and the messages that I've gotten is the observation and the responses that people have had is that they've reduced their spiritual life to shape it to fit in with what we call the world's life. And I say that because usually when you say world, you're talking about it's different, it's very distinctive from God's way of life or whatever your religious affiliation is. And so I found that it's all mixed in. And the things that would be required to straighten the situation out is not happening. There are a lot of good things happening in every society. There are a lot of wonderful things happening in society, but those are not the kinds of things that would cause a elimination of the problems, of the pains and sufferings that we experience today. You're not permitted to do that. You must do that by a power, that a commitment, a desire that will take you in boldness, go against the resistance. And so that is not happening. But this is what I recognize is essential for the kinds of changes that would be required. And so when I go and I hear other people talking about God, most of them using the book, talking about scriptures, which tells me that they really don't know anything about God. They're just reading and trying to pretend that they can interpret something, and their interpretation is not the interpretation of another, as mine is not theirs or theirs mine. But that's basically a situation where it's going to produce nothing, except it's like you heard the expression, the only way, one of the greatest things that helps evil to succeed is for good people to do nothing. And they're doing good, but it doesn't affect negatively anything that would cause the eradication of that which is destroying people's lives. And so as I see that, then I recognize that my message is, and I tell this, ladies and gentlemen, this message that I bring to you, I've never seen, heard anybody since, in the last 20 years, I didn't say anything connected to this. Now, I have to give credit where credit is due. in my lifetime, out of all of the people who talked about God, it never meant anything to me, really. When I say meant anything, was that I could see, until Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. Those two brothers recognized the same thing that I recognized. I was a kid. I was much younger than them, but I recognized what they recognized. They saw a path to what they were doing. I didn't have a path. I just saw how beautiful things could be. And they were committed. They were so committed that people followed them. They were asked to lead certain things, and they found themselves in leadership positions, but not because they were set out to be leaders. They were doing what they knew was the right thing to do. And then people say, well, that's what we want to do too, so let's be with them. Can you be with us? And so they were. And they were so genuine that when you heard this expression, even in the Bible, that says, you will not surely die. You know, if you look back at the days in the 2022 of American experience, you found a person up there saying everything that he was saying, pointing at other people about what they are doing and how vicious and how evil and destructive this is exactly what he and they were doing. But they were trying to distract attention from themselves by putting it on somebody else, opening the door so they can do any of that evil stuff that they were talking about. And so when you will not surely die, I almost see that taking place as what was taking place in 22 in the USA. Saying something, trying to point something at God, this evil voice, and I'm just using that scripture, that associating with that scripture. What he was actually doing was talking about himself, because thou shalt not kill does not mean kill. And when Dr. King and Malcolm X, just like so many other brothers and sisters before them, walked that line, that same power that took those others out came and took these out. Why? Because they were genuine. They were committed. Excuse me. Why were they committed? Because they knew what they were doing. They knew this was going to happen. They expected it to happen. Why? Because they recognize where they're at. They're in a place where your dreams are not to materialize. You are to be used to cause the materialization of others' dreams. That's what it's all about. Now, when I ran for these positions, and I think the last time, which was probably in 2015 or 16 or something like that. Yes, I ran against Barack Obama because Barack Obama didn't know anything either. And so I had to again run as a write-in. Democrats weren't interested in me. One reason, because I'm not interested in money. I feel like this. Why should I be begging you for some money to tell you what the answer to your prayers? No, I'm not going to do that. If you want to know have the answer to your prayers, you sacrifice to get the answer to your prayers. I don't need your money. You be serious. That's all I'm saying. If you say when I was going through that process, pray, ask God to do this for me, ask God to do that for me, ask God to do it. Everybody, though they were asking for separate things and individual concerns, the truth of it is that they were asking actually for the same things, And when they weren't happening, I have seen the why. Because you're expecting it to just happen, just to appear before you. And all of the evil that happens around you, it got bodies, it lies, it cheats, it does everything, but it's happening. It's building, evil building, conquering the world. And for you to say you love God and you sit down and do nothing or do something good, which is not going to do anything to knock the system, and then what you've done, you're actually playing a part in evil. And so my mission was to tell you that, whoever you are. I kind of slacked up on it a little bit because I started feeling, I guess I wanted to be accepted a little bit too. Because everybody, the church, the government, anybody would turn against you when you come down to the truth. Because the truth is wonderful. The truth is wonderful. And people who got any measure of life don't want to hear anything about the truth because it might interfere with what they have grown to be confident in. For instance, the whole heaven, let's think about those of you who believe in God. Let's talk about heaven. In heaven, the things that you do is like floating. When I don't mean literally floating, but it's so pleasing. And at the same time, the things that you're doing that are so pleasing are the same kinds of things that is necessary to do in order for your gifts and all of the things that you enjoy in heaven to actually be available to you. That's the same principle down here. All of this ugliness that we experience every day, we by our hands are doing it, and we are using money as a tool that forces us to do it. The divine way is our commitment to life, just to live like, well, maybe you can understand this, those of you who were blessed enough to have a family. When you were a kid, your parents took care of everything. You just either had a wonderful life or you didn't, but your parents were the responsible for it. Now there's a power outside of your parents called the government. Here we go. You human beings, every last one of us are made by a power. And when I say made by, it's responsible. It is our parent, and it's the parent of me, my parents, and the government. It's the overseer. It's it. And it all has to work together. So when you have that kind of relationship, you don't need money. You do your career. Your career is the thing that gives you your greatest joy. And your greatest joy means connected with the other things to creates all of the food, the clothing, the shelter, the education, the healthcare, the transportation, the infrastructure, the going to space, the going to anything you can imagine to do. Put your hands to it and utilize the resources that have been given to us, and will cause a manifestation for this place right here to be a heaven. I knew that. But why would I ask you for some money to tell you that? Once I told you that if you wanted that, you should have been on the telephone. I just heard a brother say that we can have heaven on earth. What? He says we can have all of our dreams come true. Let me call so-and-so and so-and-so. Mom, so-and-so. I just heard Sally Sue says that there's a guy down there said that we can have heaven on earth. And he's talking, and what? Let me call up my group. And this message was spread across the country. If you wanted that, and you do want that, but you might have a quarter. Now you got your real faith in that quarter because there's no money in the operation. So if there's no money, you can't even see how this stuff can happen. I mean, the message comes to you and it's great, but no money? Oh, no. And so that's the way it is. Why? Because your heart is not ready for that. Now, it might sound a little cold, but that's basically what it means. Your heart is not ready for that. And so, what is a person like me supposed to do? I'm supposed to, the message that I tell you, I have to walk according to that message. I deserve everything that I just shared with you. Now, in order for that to be true, I have to stand up and demand that even in this democracy, that I, Eddie Marcus, and those that I'm responsible for have access to everything that I just got through sharing with you. When they say this is not the system that you live under, brother, we got a different kind of system. You got to hustle. I hear you got to be dog eat dog, and we are not going to accommodate you in anything. Then I must continue. I must continue until I get them to do it. Now, what I don't do, I don't fuss. I just resist their denial. I don't get angry to the extent that I'm going to cause some violence and try to force them to do. I understand they don't know what's going on. This is my way of teaching them. My way of teaching them is to resist what they're doing and take whatever I can't resist. You know, like once they want to throw you in jail, then go to jail. You don't want to be there, but your commitment to the truth is essential that you stay there until they decide, for one reason or another, that they're going to let you out. Or if they say, well, I'm so tired of you, I'm going to kill you, then that's their duty. But your commitment is to stay and resist and take the killing. Take the killing. Why? Because they don't know any better. But the truth that will free them requires that they get the knowledge, and the test for giving them the knowledge is when they shoot you and don't nothing change but gets better. Now, you say, how's it going to get better? Well, I think the laws and things that happen for Dr. King, they happen after he passed. And the other thing about that is that because it is true, because you have the authority, you have that privilege under the God that you talk about, what are you worried about? This God that you represent here on earth will allow you to walk into a fiery furnace. Why? Because you don't care. Will allow you to walk in a den, in a lion's den. Why? Because you don't care. And if you believe in violence, it would allow you to stand up against a giant and fight it for self-defense. Because you don't care. Or that's what it's about. So in order for you, the American people, and the people in everywhere, this running from place to place is cowardice and it's ignorance because you don't know any better. You don't know the God of love. So you run thinking that you can find some shelter. You think you can find some cover here or there. That's natural as well. You can't help it when you don't know God. You got to run. You got to look for something. But if you know God, those are the ones that got to stand, and they got to stand for you. What I mean by standing for you, righteousness is for you. And if these guys are genuine, they're not up in no pulpit preaching. They are out there standing up against the system, if no more for themselves. Because standing up for them is the same as standing up for everybody else. Resisting and willing to take anything. And I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, the God that I tell you about is real. Even in your worst moments, what other folks determine as your worst moments, there's joy inside of you. Why? Because you just got it. I don't know, but it's there. I can tell you what I know. So this here thing about we got to wake up for this election time, the mid-season. And people are talking about who's going to get into office and who's going to be in the state, going to make sure that, in other words, the game goes on. And even people talking about this, people who, if Donald Trump won't be around to be a candidate for 24, you got guys doing it as best they possibly can to show all of their ugliness, hoping that they will be the ones chosen to be in that position. Here's the difference. Here's key. The guy that's led by the power of God, it doesn't matter. You know, if the most righteous person, like for people to say, well, the Democrats have been more righteous than the Republicans as far as the masses are concerned, and they would stick with the Democrats. But the problem is, with those who suffer under Democrats, don't think the Democrats are any better than the Republicans. But the God said they eliminates that stuff. So anybody that loves God knows God. I'm not talking about who believe in God. Anybody that knows God feel your pain. And they don't want that pain. That pain hurt them more than hurt you. They like your joy. When they see you joyous, they feel that joy too. And I tell you, the joy that they feel is probably more than the joy that you feel. I'm just telling you like it is. So that means you matter. Not only that, what they represent matters. And so they are the ones who stands up against the system. And they are the ones that do the resisting. If you want to come along later on or whatever, when you can see it or feel it or become a part of you, then that's your move. But until then, the one who knows must stand for God. And when that last election, when Donald Trump came into office, it told me, I even wrote this video. Go back and check them. I told you that the next thing, I think I even said it back in '88 or something back then, that what you were asking for was a Satan, something as evil as it could be. And in 15, 16, you got it. Oh, that was a shocker. But I knew this is what you wanted. This is what your actions said. This is what you got. It wasn't you wanted this. Now you want to get rid of it, but you don't have anything great, anything that works for all the people. And the thing that I offer, God, now you're not interested in that. You're interested in going to church. You're interested in playing that you believe, but becoming real, nah, you're not real at all. And this is one of the responsibilities that I have is to tell you that you are not real at all. You'll be on TV talking, trying to put other preachers down. You know you're trying to put Osteen, those guys down. I've done it. Saying they're all about money and not really doing anything. You're right. They are not doing anything for God, but neither are you. And just accept that. All of us talking, very little walking. And the walking is so narrow, you can't even see a footprint. So until we can get this thing together, we ought to shut up. And so I'm going to shut up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Eddie Marcus, once again, spokesman and advocate of basic human rights for all people. That means that all of these things that I just got through sharing with you are entitled as a people living in bodies on this earth at this time. But you don't have it because you're following the dictates of a deception propelled by evil. Good night.